I've been working on the new article or the blog for the dojo's website and the newsletter, and I decided what haven't I haven't talked about in a while is the story and the legend of like how Kung Fu was founded. And the legendary founder of Kung Fu is Buddha Dharma, who became known as Damo when he came to China. And legend and history, they kind of have this curious relationship. And some of the story of Buddha Dharma is like history, and we know that it happened. And a lot of it is definitely legend that we are pretty sure did not happen. And then there's a lot of stuff in the middle that's just like gray area, we don't know. But it's a very cool story. So I'm going to talk about some of the legends of the founder of Kung Fu. So Buddha Dharma was born into royalty, and kind of a similar story to Gautama Buddha, to Buddha, who was born as like royalty in India, and basically decided like, I'm not interested in politics. I don't want to be a king. I don't want to be a ruler. I'm just going to like be a monk, and I'm going to be spiritual. And it's a really interesting thing that happens to some people when they have like everything that there is to have. It's like you have two choices. You can, well, maybe three choices. I guess one choice would be like continue to work hard and get even more stuff. But then the other choices that most people make are just like, I'm going to, just be lazy and be like a leech. Or I'm going to do something completely different and just like, I've got everything that I need, so I might as well like have this spiritual journey and really go to a completely different kind of, success than what I already have provided for me. So this was Buddha Dharma's decision. He studied with a monk, with a famous, well-known Buddhist monk for a long time. And he asked his master, what should I do when you die? And he said, you should go to China. And so his master died, and he went to China. And they didn't have planes or trains or cars or steam-powered anything back then. So some legends say that he walked from India to China. Some legends say that he rode on a cloud. There's a legend that says when he got to the Yangtze River, he floated across on a reed powered by his chi, and he probably just like rode a horse. But he got there, and it was a big deal. And when he finally got there, he was well known. Everyone knew that he was coming, and so he had this audience with the emperor. And he shows up at the emperor's palace, and the emperor's been working diligently day and night, and he's like translating all these scriptures, these sutras, and he's building temples, and he's like, hiring monks and doing all of this stuff. And when Buddha Dharma shows up, the emperor asks him, I've done this, I've done that, I've built these beautiful things and all of this stuff in the name of Buddhism and enlightenment. Have I gotten great karma and great merit for this? And Buddha Dharma basically says no. He says, if you're doing all of these great things with the intention of getting some kind of a great reward, if you're trying to build great karma or build merit or any of that stuff, then it doesn't actually give you any of that. It's like at best, you're even. And so the emperor didn't like that because he'd been doing all this work and spending all his money. So he kicks Buddha Dharma out. And Buddha Dharma just smiles and walks out. And he starts going further and further into China, and he gets to the Shaolin Temple. And the Shaolin Temple is the temple in the woods. And this was where the monks were basically just like hunched over, doing the work of translating sutras or meditating, and they were like, Buddha-dharma found that they were kind of, falling asleep, and their physical bodies were not in good shape at all. And so he was going to teach them. And then this part of the story, some people say that they invited him to come teach them, and he said no. And some stories say he wanted to teach them, and they said no. But in any case, all the stories and all the legends say that he did not go immediately into Shaolin Temple. What he did was he actually went up into the mountains behind Shaolin and meditated in a cave. He sat in this cave and he meditated. And they say that he meditated he was there for 9 years. And one of the legends say that a few years into this practice, and so the kind of meditation that he was doing was zazen, but he was doing what they call wall gazing. So he was like staring at the wall. And part of the legend says that after a few years, he fell asleep during meditation, and he got so angry at himself that he cut off his eyelids, and so that he wouldn't fall asleep again. And then when his eyelids hit the ground, the first tea trees sprang up from his eyelids, so that all of the monks in the future could drink tea to stay awake for their meditation. I'm guessing that part is made up, but it's a nice story. And basically what was happening during all these years that Buddha-dharma is sitting in this cave, the monks are noticing, like, this is a great master. We need to learn from him. And he just wasn't agreeing to do it. They say that he sat for so long that his eyes bored a hole in the wall of the cave. And I'm excited to tell you that I visited Shaolin Temple, and I'm not excited to tell you that I was not able to go to Buddha-dharma's cave. And I know Sifu Brown has gone to Buddha-dharma's cave, and he's gone to Shaolin, and he's practiced there. I literally had 2 hours at Shaolin, which is not enough to do much of anything. I was there, and I realized I only had 2 hours before the bus was leaving. So I quick practiced my form. I found the only place where there's nobody else. I practiced the forms that I knew. I bought some swords and a guan, and I got back on the bus. But you can take the trek up to Buddha-dharma's cave, and you can see where there's this hole in the cave, supposedly from his eyes, from his concentration. And then some of the stories also say that he sat for so long that the sun came through the cave and burnt his shadow into the cave wall. The idea is he sat there for a really long time and had this amazing concentration. And the monks were just begging him to come and teach them. And this one student in particular, who some of the legends and the stories say he had met earlier in his journey in China and followed him to Shaolin Temple, and he was standing vigil outside of the cave. So the snow and the rain is coming down, and this student, who I am going to butcher the pronunciation of his name, I'm going to say Huake, something like that. And he is trying so hard for his own sake to get Buddha-dharma to teach him. And after he's refused so many times, he cut off his arm and presented it to Buddha-dharma to show how serious he was. And this student actually became Buddha-dharma's successor at Shaolin. And so this is why they actually, the students in Shaolin, they bow to each other with one hand rather than the traditional two-handed bow. So they bow like this. And if you guys meet Sifu Brown, he was practicing at Shaolin and promoted to a certain rank there, and now he bows the same way with one hand. But that's in respect for this student who got his arm cut off in the pursuit of Zen and the pursuit of greater, enlightenment. And there are a few actual passages in this book, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. If you guys haven't read this book, it's one of my favorites. I love it. Some of the stories are very funny. So this is one of the stories actually from Buddha-dharma talking to Huike, his successor. It's called Buddha-dharma Pacifies the Mind. Buddha-dharma sits facing the wall. His future successor stands in the snow and presents his severed arm to Bodhidharma. He cries, "My mind is not pacified. Master, pacify my mind." Bodhidharma says, "If you bring me that mind, I will pacify it for you." The successor says, "When I search my mind, I cannot hold it." Bodhidharma says, "Then your mind is pacified already." And the comment in this book is that broken-toothed old Hindu, Bodhidharma, came thousands of miles over the sea from India to China as if he had something wonderful. He is like raising waves without wind. After he remained years in China, he had only one disciple, and even that one lost his arm and was deformed. Alas, ever since he has had brainless disciples. And then a poem. Why did Bodhidharma come to China? For years, monks have discussed this. All of the troubles that have followed since came from that teacher and disciple. In case you didn't catch the hint of sarcasm in the comment, the reference to brainless disciples is like, that's kind of what we all want, is to be able to transcend the little mind, the ego. And when you achieve that state of no mind, like that's it. And there's a story from the end of Bodhidharma's time at Shaolin. And they said after 9 years, he decided that he wanted to return to India. And so he invited all of the disciples around. And this is said to be in the year 1000. Wait a minute, that can't be right. Well, according to this, he was there for 500 years. But recorded in the year, or maybe this was a story recorded in the year 1004 by the Chinese teacher Dogen. After 9 years in China, Bodhidharma wished to go home and gathered his disciples about him to test their apperception. Basically, like, what do they know? One of his disciples, Dofuku, said, "In my opinion, truth is beyond affirmation or negation, for this is the way it moves." Bodhidharma replied, "You have my skin." The nun Soji said, "In my view, it is like Ananda's sight of the Buddha land, seen once and forever." Bodhidharma answered, "You have my flesh." Doiku said, "The four elements of light, airiness, fluidity, and solidity are empty, and the 5 skandhas are nothings, no things. In my opinion, nothing is reality." And Bodhidharma commented, "You have my bones." Finally, Huike, the successor, bowed before the master and remained silent. And Bodhidharma said, "You have my marrow." And this is a wonderful story that just kind of speaks to, there are different levels of perception and different levels of understanding and different levels of practice, even within the same discipline, within Zen and within martial arts. And if I didn't mention this before, Bodhidharma was also the founder of Zen Buddhism, and they call it Chan in China, but in Japanese it's Zen. And it's not like everybody who studies for the same amount of time or with the same teacher achieves the same thing. There are always going to be like varying levels of depth that people get to. But I like the analogy of some students are going to get the skin, and that's something. It's better than nothing. Some students are going to get the flesh, like a little bit of the meat in there. Some students are going to get all the way down to the bone. And then there are a few who are actually going to get inside the bone to the marrow. And, his answer was to bow. And I think we have a tendency to get really caught up in the stories and caught up in all of the fancy ideas. And it's like what is really going on and what is really important to pay attention to and to practice is so simple. I mean, a simple bow and silence and just sitting still. Like this is the highest form of human activity, is to sit and not move and not think. That's it. Because if you can really pacify the mind and still the mind, it's such an incredible achievement. But it's so simple. So I see it in martial arts all the time. People get really excited about the new stuff, the new technique, the fancier version of this technique, the flashy stuff. And when they see something that they already have learned in class, they've already done, they have a tendency to look at it with this boredom, with this attitude of, I already know this, I already got it. And if you do that and you're always looking for the next fanciest thing and the next more complicated whatever you think is going to be more impressive, you're only going to stay this deep. This is as far as you will get. And it happens when people meditate, as they sit to meditate and they're there for a few minutes, and then they think, well, this isn't working very well. I'm going to try that other technique that I read about online. And then they do that for a few minutes, and they think, oh, I'm going to do that one that I heard from in that talk, and then they do that one. And they only do it for a few minutes, and you can never actually get anywhere if you're constantly looking for and switching between. So be completely sound in the knowledge and the understanding that is literally just to sit and to do that which is the most simple and really be anchored in that which is changeless. Most things in life are not changeless, but there are a few things that you can really anchor yourself in, and really just sitting and breathing is the best. So that's what we're going to practice now. And when your mind wanders, it's just because it's seeking some kind of excitement. And it's just because it wants to keep you on this level of the skin. So let all those thoughts go and just bring it gently back and get deeper and deeper until you get all the way to the marrow of your meditation. Sit.